Okay. Before we get started, guys, I got to give you guys a major disclaimer. A major disclaimer. Like I'm going to say in this video, you're going to see. I think this is the best episode of Atlanta because your boy Donald. What are you doing? Your boy Donald Glover. He got me. He got me. This was a mockumentary, and he tricked me into thinking that this was a real freaking documentary. There is no such thing as this guy that's about to be in this video, but it is that dang good. And I want to tell you guys, so I wasn't out there, spreading misinformation. But you got me, DG. Awesome. Let's get started. Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to J Will Trap TV. We are back and we're reviewing another episode of Atlanta. This is season 4, episode 8. And the episode is called The Goof That Sat by the Door. So this episode is different. It's more like a documentary, but it's extremely compelling. At first, I didn't know what was going on, but oh my God, I am so glad I seen this episode. This is probably the most important piece of television I've watched this entire year. Okay, let's get right into this. Let's go. So the episode starts with a disclaimer. At the request of the BAN lawyers, which are the Black America Network lawyers, we acknowledge that the story you're about to see has been fact-checked to the best of ability, and certain details presented may not be endorsed by the Walt Disney Company. So I'm like, whoa, where are we going? We then start with a little history lesson on the 90s and Disney. Disney is going through a golden age. They just released Little Mermaid. They just did Beauty and the Beast, and Lion King is like the #1 movie in America. At the same time, while this is all going down, we also have the Rodney King riots going on. This is a pivotal moment for Black culture in the 90s. But on the side of all this going on, we also have what we're going to talk about in our story today, which is a crazy corporate story where an African-American became the CEO of Walt Disney. I didn't even know this. I had no clue. They never told us about this when we were kids. When they showed us the Goofy movie, they never told us, hey, this was made by a Black CEO. So let's get into this documentary. How did a young animator from Atlanta become the CEO of Walt Disney? Welcome to the recap of the Thomas Washington story. So we start off with some early history of Thomas Washington's family. We meet Thomas's mother, Evelyn Washington, and she tells us that she named her son after a famous musician and entertainer named Thomas Jones. Usually boys in the family were named after their father, but they felt this kid was different, so they gave him his own name. From youth, Thomas had an obsession with drawing. He drew everywhere. One of his favorite characters and something he was inspired by was Astro Boy, which is a Japanese animation, which is interesting because, a lot of Black folks love anime in this day and age. One day he asked his cousin if Astro Boy was gonna come and save us all. And when his cousin asked, save from what? He said, everything. So from a young age, he always was very thoughtful. Thomas grew up in a crime-ridden area. He was picked on, he was called whitewashed. As his cousin said, niggas will make fun of you for anything. In 1987, Thomas left Atlanta to go attend SCAD, a big prestigious school for animators, artists, etc. There were not many Black students in his program or cohort. Thomas showed a lot of promise from the very beginning. He said that he wanted to work at Disney one day. The admins at SCAD thought this was funny because everyone wanted to work at Disney, but only the top of the best could actually go work at Disney. But they did see through his merits that he did have the merit and ingenuity and grind of a Disney animator. During his tenure at SCAD, Thomas got to study under Art Babbitt. Art Babbitt, he's famous for creating the Goofy character. He's on a lot of different Disney credits and he's just kind of been doing it. He goes to the school and he gives lectures and mentors the youth. Art's character, Goofy, is described as a dolt, a not so smart character that will think about things for a long time and try to do them correctly, but always end up doing them wrong anyway, even after putting in effort. In an article that was written by Art Babbitt called The Analysis of the Goof, he writes that you should think of a goof as an everlasting optimist, a half-wit, good-natured colored boy. Thomas read this text and he used it to inform a piece that he made called Goof Please. In this series, Thomas drew goofs, but as Black people. Thomas used to joke with his cousin that, hey, Goofy's really a nigga, right? Thomas made a short film called The Little Prince for his thesis. He made the film shortly after his father passed away. People thought it was either a really funny film or very sad. A lot of folks came to look at this film. Thomas's father's passing seems to have informed and inspired the film, and the film is so great that it actually got him a spot at Disney. Thomas leaves SCAD and goes to Disney when the company's doing very well. Disney's starting a diversity program, And Tom is one of the guys who come in, one of the talented African-American folks who come in through this diversity program. He starts off as an assistant animator on a DuckTales movie. He doesn't really have creative control of anything, but he gets to do his thing and work as an animator. When the Watts riots happened, Thomas was really concerned and he called his mother. He told her that he wanted to go down there, that he wanted to be with them, that he wanted to be in the mix and see what was going on in protest. It's very clear that Thomas cares about Black culture and the portrayal of Black people. His mother told him that if he wanted to join the riot, he needed to use his pen and paper to riot. She wants to keep him safe. Thomas tells his cousin that if he ever got a chance to do a movie at Disney, that he would not hold back. So what happens next is one of the most unlikely and unprecedented events in corporate history. Disney had a CEO switch up. After Beauty and the Beast came out, a new CEO was put in place. His name was Dennis Stevenson. He shortly passed away pretty quickly because he had a medical condition. The job was open again, and when the executives voted on the next CEO, there was another mix-up. The executives voted on a man named Thomas Washington to come in as CEO, but they didn't realize that they had the wrong Thomas Washington. They actually voted for our Thomas Washington, who was Black. So when he came in and they seen that this is Black guy, they voted as CEO, they're all really pissed and upset. Thomas comes in and it's clear that he wants to do something with this moment. He calls friends and he lets people know that he's CEO, and people cannot believe him until he actually brings them into the office. On his first day as CEO, he shows his colleagues an old film of Mickey, Goofy, and Pluto. In this scene, Mickey has Pluto on a leash. Thomas asks his colleagues, why is Goofy allowing Mickey to pull Pluto on the leash? Aren't Goofy and Pluto both dogs? Why is he allowing this to happen to one of his own? Everyone in the room was confused and they didn't really understand what he was asking. But this is the normal plight of an African American in a corporate setting. Frank, another animator that's working at Disney at the time, recalls that a lot of the white folks that were now working under Thomas were a bit shocked by some of his antics and ideas, and they didn't like what direction he was going in. At this time, Frank was just another lowly kind of animator with no hope to ever, rise up in the company. But Thomas approached Frank and told him that he wanted to be director on this project, on a project that he would call the Goofy movie, a project that he thought would be the Blackest movie ever made. He said that he wanted to use the character Goofy to portray the African-American experience in America. So we shift and we start learning about Thomas's home and married life. We find out that he got married to his wife at a young age and that they lived a modest life. They couldn't afford everything, and when they couldn't afford things, Thomas would draw it to his wife's delight. They had a son named Maxwell pretty early, and Thomas would say that the Goofy movie was gonna be for Maxwell, that his wife could show it to Maxwell when he wasn't around, and she never understood what that meant. Goofy is a nuanced portrayal of a Black man that loves his family. The documentary then goes on to state that there are hidden themes and messages for the Black culture in the Goofy movie. Disney was also aware that the film had deeper meanings as well. And I think that's the case with a lot of Disney movies. In an animator movie where Thomas has all of his staff in one place at one time, he speaks about how Disney has never drawn authentically Black characters. He says to do this, you have to actually know Black people, not just see them, but you have to know them. He tries to get them to see his vision, but his vision isn't very well received. He starts to get complaints to the other executives, and he has to kind of change his approach and his message to not be so harsh. When some of the other executives asked him to put Mickey in a movie, Thomas would say that he didn't want to put that white boy in the movie. The other folks would look at him and they say, Mickey Mouse isn't white, Mickey Mouse is a mouse. Thomas did all kinds of other things. The music in the movie was inspired by Tevin Campbell. This was a big difference in direction on how normal Disney movies are made. Thomas was really trying to riot with this pen. He said that he wouldn't be here for a long time, but he would be here for a good time. So we start to find out that Thomas does have some issues. He didn't like when people challenged his Blackness, and he also struggled with his Black identity. He wanted to make his Black presence normal. He wanted to make being a Black animator cool. He wanted it to feel okay and just a normal thing for everyone else at Disney. But really, as we all know, he'll always be unique in that position. One day he showed up with a gun and he asked Frank to come over. He said he carried this weapon to remind himself of who he was and his place in society when he was inside the Disney offices. But I'm pretty sure it was probably really shocking for Frank to see him having a pistol in the workplace. But shout out to your boy Frank for not going and snitching on your boy and just kind of keeping that to the chest. Thomas's wife says as time went on with making the movie that he started to get mean and talk to himself and just start having issues in his marriage in general. He wasn't nice to be around, and it was just really hard to be with him in the house. There was one point where he and his wife were having an altercation, and his son Maxwell stepped in between them, and Thomas raised his hand as if he was going to strike him. This kind of changed their relationship forever. His wife believed that he was a good father and he was trying to be a good father, and Thomas would say that everything he was doing was for Maxwell. Soon after all of this, Thomas's wife had left them. One day there was a meeting in the office, and the other executives were saying that the Goofy movie budget was kind of going over. They were asking him if he was in control of the budget. He said, of course he's in control of the budget, and he said that he was goofy. And then he did a very chilling laugh in front of everyone. Frank said when he seen this, this outburst in the meeting, he said that it really made him sad, and he can really see that something was going on with Thomas. He said that it made him cry. As these issues started to arise, the company started making attempts to push him out. At one point, they offered him $75 million over 10 years. That's unheard of. I've never heard of anything like that, but $75 million over 10 years? That's crazy. That's half of a freaking blockbuster budget. All he wanted to give him this money for was for them to opt out of his contract so they can kind of get back to business as usual. Thomas was like, nope, he didn't want the money. He wanted to stay in his position and continue making the movie. Thomas started to get paranoid and would say that he was afraid for his life, but he would never identify who was going to try to hurt him. So the documentary now goes into talking about the end of the Goofy movie. So there was a point where Thomas wanted Goofy to get pulled over at the end of the movie and get killed by a police officer. Instead, they put in the Bigfoot scene and the dance. When interviewers are asked if they thought Thomas's death was an accident, they don't seem to believe that it was. They then show us a tape where Thomas is really down, he's crying, he's by himself, he's drinking, it looks like some Hennessy. And he says that he has to finish this, movie, that he's doing this movie for us, for everyone, for the culture. When the news broke that Thomas was no longer CEO, they brought him back to the lot one last time to show him a final screening of the movie. Thomas was really upset about this screening because they went behind his back without his input and changed a number of scenes. They took out some key scenes that depicted the Black journey and they put in a Bigfoot scene. It was extremely offensive to him. He left the screening, and this was the last time he was ever seen by anyone. We find out that his car was found at the bottom of Lake Castiac. I think that's how you say it. This is the same lake where he took his son fishing throughout the years. They never found his body, and his family was in great pain. To find comfort, they would watch the Goofy movie. At the end of the day, his wife believes that all Thomas really wanted was to be a part of the culture, to make his mark. And I think he did, and she says that he made the blackest movie of all time. So let's talk about this. This episode's really different, but I think this is probably hands down the best episode of Atlanta. It relates to me so much in my everyday kind of plight. And I'm not saying I'm going to work freaking out about things that are going on, but anywhere I go, and I'm in a kind of a corporate place, it always feels like the story for African Americans is kind of shut up and dribble, right? And then to even be in the room, to even be in the meeting, to even be in the office, you have to be the most exceptional employee. I have to be 10 times a better employee than my colleagues to even be here. And you can only share so much of your culture, so much of your life, so much of how you do things. Because if you share too much, you can make them uncomfortable. And when you start making them uncomfortable, they start having conversations with you. They will never understand or care about our plight. Sure, things have gotten better, right? Since the Goofy movie, since, the Watts riots, right? But some of the things that I see here in this documentary are still issues today. Today, my friends. You see Thomas, and I'm not saying the one of him on the table doing the peace sign. That's a little crazy. That's a little out there. But just him standing with the other executives and making, confident looks or giving the peace sign up with just, a few other people, I don't really see anything wrong with that. But you can see how uncomfortable they are in that image. This experience exists today for black men and women all across the country, probably throughout the whole world. I love this episode. I really do, because I never knew there was ever a black CEO at Disney. When I was young and we watched the Goofy movie, they never told us, hey, this was made by, they never told us Thomas's involvement. And when you read the credits when you're a kid, they turn it off right before they get to the credits, and they don't really explain what is going on. So I want to thank the Atlanta team for kind of bringing this, relating this to Atlanta. The guy came from Atlanta. That's why it's here. I did not see or think about all those hidden elements to the black culture in this film, but I can guarantee you tonight, me and my kids, we'll be sitting down with some popcorn. We'll be putting on Disney Plus, and we're gonna watch that Goofy movie. All right, guys, you guys know who I am. I'm your boy, J. Will. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for tuning in on this recap. I really wanna know what you guys think about this one. I didn't really wanna get into this point by point because the documentary is so good on its own that it's really worth the watch. The episode was an hour long, and that's a little different, but this, I'm telling you, is the most pivotal most pivotal, the best example, one of the best black examples I've ever seen. You see how this man broke down his mental health, you know, took him to another level. This stuff will kill you. You know what I mean? This stuff will kill you. When you're a black person coming into any kind of corporate workplace, you want to show these people, first of all, you want more of you to be there. Second of all, you want to show these people that what you come from is okay, that it's fine, that it's normal, that it's not the same as them, but not that much different. So let me know what you guys think, all right, guys? Hit that like, hit that subscribe, put a notification bell so you know when I go live or make a new video. All right, guys, peace.